Welcome to Answers from the Universe and the Andronicus transmissions on Wolf Spirit Radio, Ever Beyond Radio, and Studio 9 Jam on YouTube. With your host, Jessica Ariel Morocco, featuring JP as the voice of Andronicus. Please visit www.readingsbyrael.com, that's A-R-A-E-L.
From the future, by way of the past. I'm on my ticket for the 15th century. We started moving through a hole in history.
You're listening to Wolf Spirit Radio.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. It's a wonderful day for the Andronicus transmissions, and welcome to Answers from the Universe. I'm here with JP and myself, and we are looking forward to another good show, and also for all this new information that keeps coming in, and the many things that reveal and create insight for us moving forward. I found that, hello JP, how are you?
Hi sweetheart. Would I say I'm not particularly brilliant because I cut my hand right open with a power saw, this morning, and, I've been to the hospital and they've sewn me all back up again. There's no actual damage to my, tendons, so I will be able to play the guitar after this. But it's, my hand's a little sore, and it's like about twice the size because it's got a great big bandage wrapped around it. So I can't do anything. I can only wash my fingertips and, I live a very, my life is pretty grubby. I use coal and oak wood and things like that. So it's going to be a little challenging for the next week or two, but, I'll be back with my full. So you might find that my responses are a little slower because I'm having to click with a different finger on my mouse. So,
okay.
Yeah. So.
Oh, don't worry about it. And yeah, I saw the wound you had on Facebook. It showed everyone how it was all wrapped up and everything.
Yeah, you don't want to see the wound.
Goodness, he lost his hand.
Yeah, you don't want to see the wound. It's really ugly. Yeah, I couldn't look. I was being very humorous with the doctor, but I couldn't look at it because you know how it is when you hear about people and they say, oh yeah, I broke my leg and I didn't feel anything until I looked at it. So I decided I wasn't going to look at it. So the doctor's done all the sewing, he's done all the cleaning and all of that stuff, but, my, does it hurt when when they inject you to get the anesthetic in? That's the most painful bit, actually. Jagging the, it was, oh man, I felt they talk about drugs working like fire through your veins. He must have hit some vein and I could feel this fire. He's like injecting fire into my body and then suddenly it goes numb.
Wow. So, the fire, the Prometheus reference again.
Oh, maybe, yeah. But it was the idea of fire in the veins. I've never felt this before. It really felt like it's really squirting hot stuff into my veins. Very strange. Very strange. Anyway, that's my weird experience today. How about you?
Oh, we just have a helicopter going over. Must have hit a note.
Yep.
Now, there's a hospital nearby, so they do little lifts every now and then. Hopefully someone else isn't too seriously hurt. Today's an interesting day, and I'm glad to see that you're still in one piece. I called you the Wounded Primus.
The Wounded Primus.
So, but you're not the Wounded Warrior.
No,
yeah.
Not yet.
No, he wounded himself, just for those that are listening.
That's right. Well, I had a healing today from one of Frank Jordan's group, the Sunday Healing Group, and she has these beautiful Lyran and Arcturian healing codes that she's been downloading. It was very nice to have a conversation with her anyway. But to get. So I'm having bits of healing. People are sending me healing, and it's probably why it's hurting so much.
Yeah.
So back up on the healing a little bit, just so I can focus on this show.
It does. It hurts a little bit before it gets better, but it will get better. And it's just things happen. We all have, sometimes things just happen. And, anyhow, trying to think if there's any updated news we do have Amy Delgado coming on with us for the second half, talking about Aldebaran, and our conversations will continue about Arasmus, if you remember from last week. And also Viking will be joining us today on the second hour. So if you want to stay tuned in for the second hour after we do all of the channeled information. And it's going to be interesting. I'd like to hear what both of them have to say about the information that we got from Aldebaran. And it'll be a good conversation. So make sure if you have any insights or questions, you can always post them in the chat room. And hello to everyone in the chat today. It's very nice to be here. I love you all and glad that you're participating. And for those that want to sit back and just listen, hello to you as well. And to many of you that are listening to archive shows. So glad that you're listening, and thank you for being here. And we also encourage you to be a supporter of Wolf Spirit Radio and of my work as well, because I do this on my free time. And if you feel led to directed to assist, then that's wonderful. I know we've had some wonderful people step forward to help with different things. We have Shaw Bain, who has come in to help with our Facebook group, as well as a few others. Martin has helped with some other things regarding putting all of the messages together in an orderly fashion and clearing them out from a lot of the conversations around it. So that's Martin. Trying to get his correct.
Jangar,
yeah.
I think is the best way of pronouncing it. It's very difficult to. But Martin he's so this really quite incredible to listen to them all in one go. Like just the Andronicus transmissions, just the transmissions, just like Andronicus. And it's a fascinating listen when you just listen to it as like a complete narrative. By the way, you've got, your chat room open that has a on it.
Yes. Oh, all that. Yep. Popping noise.
So you go to bottom right of the chat room and click the little speaker icon.
That should do it.
Anybody else who's experiencing that little sound?
That annoying sound.
Yeah. It's almost like a glottal click of the Zulu language, But if you want to go to the bottom right of the chat room, and you'll see just by the number, which at the moment is 44, to the left of that there's a little loudspeaker icon. Just click that and say never and okay or something like that. Never. In the field of human conflict has so much been done by so little for so many. No, or something. Anyway, so Jessica.
Yes, the many voices of JP.
Who'd have thought I'd become a voice actor in this life? Anyway, so.
So many other possibilities.
So, where are we going to go first? Who are we going to talk to?
Let's go with Andronicus. We're going to start with Andronicus.
Okay, no. Hello, Suma.
Hello, Andronicus. Where are you? You seem to be on a distant land so far away right now. Out beyond the galaxy, on a seemingly, is it vacant land?
Hello, Suma. I truly missed hearing from you. You should come to me more often. There's so much I could share with you. You see, my soul is becoming a beacon of light again. Please don't call it. My soul is becoming a beacon of light again. I know to many I may seem to fluctuate, sometimes in the trenches and other times in a state of high insight. I am all things, yet forever journeying deep within my soul and further exploring a seemingly unending, sprawling universe full of so many wonders. Here I sit, alone, like a king of his own planet. I can yell and dance, make a fool of myself, and no one will laugh. We're not perfect. None of us are perfect. We only know more, have seen more, have journeyed more. Since our age is unmeasurable, we have lived more, and thus learned more. We make decisions based off our own experiences, understanding of allies and conflicts. We know our miscommunications and violations of parameters, our quest for power, attention, or romance. We have sought all of these things out in so many ways and variations with so many species, more than one could count on two hands. We leave you with our legacy, but often discover that you become easily halted, stuck, and unable to move forward. Unable to move forward as a species without a prodding or two. Why is it that wars and conflicts are the primary cause for you to feel the fire within you to make change? Why can't you grow from a simple virtue of growth and information like other species before you? Negativity mustn't be the catalyst for change. A yearning for truth and expansion is the most ideal incentive. In the most evolved societies, they begin their day with quiet, contemplative intention. They end their day the same way, and during the course of the day, they are in the moment, interacting with those around them. It is wonderful and beautiful existence. It is a wonderful and beautiful existence. So much clarity that can be gleaned and harvested from planting these seeds of truth. I know you all and love you. I can echo out my voice with a strong, bold cry. I am. I exist. I live. You are. You exist. You live. Your breath meets mine and my breath meets yours. There is no divide in the space of love. Is it a truth to you as well?
Yes, it is a truth to me as well. You are giving me a sense of hope.
The will of the heart can make the most faint at heart to have the heart of a lion. Nothing to fear. Fear is not something we taught you. Fear is only given to you by those who wanted to take from you. Be free of fear. It limits you from who you were meant to be. Have no boundaries. Seek out the expansiveness of truth, life, and unlimited change. Hold dearly to the highest potential for yourself and humanity.
I will. And I remember what you told us. No fear and the highest potential for humanity always.
So, go now. Be free.
And then the view of Andronicus seemed to change in a signal as the view became blurred like an interrupted television screen. And he was gone.
Interesting. I hope because there's pain in my hand all the time. It's really strange. So I hope it's not coming through to change anything.
No.
Good. So yes, feel like the impetus to change, something that humans don't like to do too much, eh?
Yeah, he's always moving. He says we get stuck. They come back here and they notice that we're not moving. Like we get stuck in a rut or something, and he says, and then what creates this impetus to change is usually for us it's wars or something really shocking. He's saying, why not create those changes without the big trauma, without the big issues? And I thought about it. I said, I never thought about that before. We do seem to respond more of a knee-jerk reaction as opposed to maybe just our exploration and curiosity of life and growing.
I think it also comes back to that shock thing that I've been talking about, of the shock of Lyra. It causes people to go into a state of, okay, we're here. Let's stay here for a while. And I think that becomes that stuckness that Andronicus is talking about. Because it's such a trauma to move from one, it's the trauma of change. We can't deal with too much trauma.
Yeah, I agree. And the trauma, it always becomes hard then, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Who needs that?
Yeah, because because of the undealt with grief that underlies it all, until we've felt that, until we've experienced it and gone through it, then we keep getting re-triggered because it's the grief that we're running away from. We do everything that we can not to feel grief, yet we feel it all the time. We keep relationships going beyond their point of sell-by date. We try to preserve our people who are ill and dying, and just end up leaving them in a vegetative state for 20 years. That's no life. So our resistance to grief is something that is, I think, a trigger for all this.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it is the grief. But it's also, it's like a bell or something. It's a wake up call. And I don't know if we're wired that way, or are we conditioned that way, or are we so entranced with the way things are going along, the routine that we're set in, that it requires something bigger to wake us up. It's almost like the election sort of woke everyone up out of sleep, and then they went to an extreme that it was like no one was prepared and no one was there to fully explain what's going on and bring us to the next level. Instead, they created something else out of it that, for them it might have been helpful, but for our planet and for all of humanity, it created actually a divide. I think there was a male-female divide that occurred during that, which didn't seem to make sense how that happened, because the real issues at hand were, war or peace, at this point. It was kind of very carnal. Some very basic issues had to be addressed, and instead it turned into this distraction with between male and female. But hopefully, we continue to shake that out. And yeah, I'm absolutely, there's still some issues that are unresolved, with the genders, but that there's bigger stuff that has to be looked at, and that's our survival of our species. So we need to be much more vigilant and looking at change, not from a shock point, but from something that we're scaling to in a higher way of living.
Yeah. Well, it's like just being able to get in front of the loop of this grief issue. To be able to say, right, okay, I understand that's what I need to feel. Okay, let's move through a little bit of it. Let's do a little bit every day. And but it's a thing that we've forgotten. And nobody wants to go there. Who wants to go and experience grief? It's not the thing that people want to do.
Yeah, no, they don't. But we're figuring it out. If something is better than nothing, I'll say it like that. But I think that Andronicus is trying to get us to move forward, and also let us know that other civilizations have a different approach to this. They don't go through the dramas and the heartache and the different things that they feel that they need to, the loss, the sorrow, the pain, the wars, and also the great tragic things that happen in our environment. So they don't wait for that. They just, sort of say, okay, now it's time for us to learn our next lesson or whatever it is that we need to understand. And then there's this expansion, this universal expansion that starts to come in, and that their communication opens up. And so they've kind of scaled naturally, where he's trying to show us that we've kind of have done it the hard way. Kind of went around the block a few times when it was across the street. I don't know, is there any other way to say it?
Well, we do things the hard way, but in some ways, the long way, the hard way, gives us that detail of experience that perhaps we would have missed, and maybe the details are more important than we think they are. I don't know. I'm just talking from the stars here. So, shall we move on to our next transmission?
All right, so we're going to go to Rhodan next. Hello, Rhodan. It looks like you are in a war zone. What is that? I can see what looks like military clothing, and there's all sorts of rubble and mess. Oh my goodness.
We've arrived at a sector called Star 89. The frequency here is unbearable. I can't seem to shut off the sound wave reactors as they're abounding in an abnormal state for any living being.
What happened there? It looks like so much desolation from all perspectives. I see smoke and destroyed buildings, but I don't see as any type of humans or other species. Where is this place?
It is within the Orion star system. There was a rebel group who threatened to harm various civilizations around the area, and we came in to stop it before it got out of control. When we arrived, this is what we saw. The battle had already taken place, and any captives must have been taken. When we arrived, this blaring noise and electrical fires had been triggered to hide any evidence of activity and whereabouts. At this point, we have it under control. Only a few fires remain. We have found some captives. Species of various origins were trapped below the planet.
Who are the guilty parties?
The ones you call Orion Greys. They've been instrumental in a lot of violence within this region. They threatened that they would enter all sectors and take over. I warned them that there would be repercussions for these actions.
What will happen to them?
We'll quarantine them from the rest of the species and try to see what has infested their thinking to do such atrocities. Our greatest concern at this point is to discover if a virus has incited this madness and violent behavior. Humans don't realize that there are parasitical entities that infest and overtake the thoughts within the host body or vessel. It is like taking over a nation. The parasite becomes the victor and the consciousness is overridden by the mind control of the parasite. This is not bioengineered. There are multiple species and sources of infestation. My greater concern is the infestation on your planet. If these tall greys are heavily infested, I fear it is a contagion that has been carried with them and will affect all those that they have encountered. Right, it requires a high constitution to stave off the infestation. You refer to this as consciousness. One must be connected to their higher will and standing with Source. Most of that will prevent further infestation. Those whose frequencies are lower will discover that the infestation begins to dominate and take over the will. This may be in part the reason why some humans seem to have already lost their free will. They who chose to be in a lower space of consciousness are most vulnerable. They will not be in the rule of the grey species. It appears that they are not in control of their own decisions. This behavior goes far beyond their own need for survival. They are a very ancient, trusted species until thousands of years ago, and since then they've had moments of lucidity and live well amongst themselves in projects of interest and formation. Then they go off into a madness that brings them to this status. For years this has gone on undetected. You might ask, how could this have gotten so out of control? Much of it went undetected. They hid a lot of it under the guise of accidents and experiments. We've had other species of more outward aggression to deal with. The tall greys are much more subdued and seemingly sensible. Underneath it all is an inward battle of destruction, a sense of unleashing. We can now see how dangerous this has been for many. Many of the smaller sectors have been experimentation stations for them. thought it was meaningless experiments in the host of quantum discovery. Instead, they had a sinister element lurking behind them. Now we're getting some traction in the Orion field. We have noticed the tragic results of our oversights. Furthermore, the negative effects of their presence on Earth has been much worse than we suspected. Our greatest concern is the mutagenic, the blackening of the soul or soul capture. From our assessment, this was unleashed on your planet in 1832, timeline 1. It sequentially infested the other parallels in 10-year intervals, which will leave us at a place of saturation through all of the timelines and parallel realities. Now, hear me. Much of this can be remediated and eliminated. We have quarantined your planet and declared this out amongst the galaxy. This is the reason why you may be feeling like you're not being heard, or that the viral element may even gone to a phase of mutagenic at this stage, due to the status of saturation. Worry not. All of this can be remedied. One must be calm regarding these matters and be sensible dealing with what can be done to resolve it. Our scientists have been isolating the problems to identify the origin or origins of the virus to further remedy the issue. As of now, our suspicion returns back to the early goblin infestation of the one-cell species who created a contamination throughout. Another suspected species is the aquilans, the aquatic species who introduced a similar or potentially same mutagenic to the elven race on your planet.
It's the aquilans.
Aquilans. Mm-hmm. The aquatic species who introduced a similar or potentially same mutagenic to the elven race on your planet. This mutagenic is what turns some of the elven into the ones we refer to as the jinn. To begin purification, one should use frankincense, essence of myrrh, white sage, coriander.
Is that an essential oil?
Choose what you like. Make sure you do this when you feel that you are losing control of your emotions or having a difficult time sustaining the energy. This will deeply affect the basic virus and will remove the etheric lesions within your field. The contamination, I am told, has been catastrophic.
We are meant to survive, isn't that true?
Yeah, we will help you remedy those who you cannot convince to cleanse their field or lift their consciousness. You, as the carriers of the truth, will have to hold on for the rest and be strong. I believe in all of you, and trust your force will sustain many generations from the past and future. Hold fast and be true. We will find more details in this matter to share with you. With truth, love, and virtue, I honor your civilization.
Thank you, Rhodan, and we'll be awaiting further instructions.
Wow.
Yeah. So, it's, I don't know if anyone's noticed this, but when I have conversations with Rhodan or even Andronicus, it seems to evolve. So as we're talking, it's like he's getting data in at the same time. So It looks like it starts off where he's saying, we're thinking we're going to investigate, and then before you know it, he has the answer by the end of the conversation. And he's done this before, where I'm thinking, well, you said you didn't really know, and now all of this information's coming out. It's just like he's assessing it and getting his answers rapidly. So he's able to then give me the answer while we're speaking. What it looked like is this, he starts looking and he's not really sure what's going on, and then he's getting this data and he understands it's the grace, but he's interacted with them before. And they seem to act like they're going to behave, that they might be a little bit extreme doing some kind of experimentations that they like to do, and using these smaller planets that, are not really habited by anything else, and kind of going through their different experimentations, which he's allowed, that's kind of allowable and something that's done to certain degrees, even as we do experimentations here on this planet. So, what he didn't realize is because they're not the most aggressive and vocal species, he was noticing, kind of like the reptilians were more in the forefront, and some of the other species that were much more aggressive were in the forefront. And the Greys were much more quiet and hidden in a lot of their agendas. And so they had less focus, and then they were doing more, but it wasn't really obvious because they hid a lot of what they did. And so he started to realize that there was a lot of anger there. There was a lot of things that started to come out, and he began to realize, and as time went on, as he's just being in their presence, he gets kind of a data download of a lot of the things that they did. And so he kind of like the way a psychic can be in a person's presence and get that, but only, exponentially much more insightful than the average human would be. And so he's realizing that they have a serious problem. And then starts to see it as a virus, and a subspecies. I say a subspecies because it's smaller, and maybe on a molecular level, but it has a powerful persona, and it actually is of a negative field, from a negative field or aspect, and so it also has an essence of domination, and so it wants to come in and take over the body, and many of us know that there are certain elements in our like diet or field or right now that we have that kind of create this sense of control, even bypassing our will, like addictions or
candida, which is
the yeast that you talk about, the yeast. Yeah. There's other thing too. It's like the sugar, right? The sugar that people crave, and then it affects their blood levels, and just creates all these problems. So he's showing you this kind of black looking energy that has this very strong persona that it comes into the body, and I don't know, I'm gonna say something for those that don't watch American TV, but if you know American TV, the show SpongeBob, the cartoon, and there's this little tiny guy called Plankton, and yet he wants to rule the world all the time. It sort of reminded me of that, of this small, minute essence, but it's very condensed and very powerful, and it gets ingested or somehow infected into the body, and then starts to sort of overtake the will. So if your will and consciousness isn't strong, it seems to kind of overtake it, but in a sense, it sort of reminded me of the black goo. But he referenced it as coming from an ancient source of the goblins or the goblin that we talked about much earlier. Do you want to
recap for those new listeners, because we've covered so much. You've dug up so much in these last couple of years that people used to think of this the creature of a goblin is a mythical creature, but what you discovered is that there is a planet called Gobin where these creatures come from. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? And there's more, but I want you just to fill people in on Gobin.
Well, it started off that they, just like anything, had evolved in a one cell. It was a one cell species, probably as far back as the primordial times. And at one point, one of them, just kind of mutated on its own somehow, or was affected by some kind of combination of things, and it created this dark element. And so this one species, it's, converted, and then it mutated. It became this goblin, but it was in a one cell form early on, and then it evolved into an actual species, just as other species had evolved. And they were very, very savvy. They're very, very intelligent, and even though that they were lower consciousness beings, they were able to jump dimensions by sort of latching on. They figured out a way to latch on, or like a virus, connect to someone, infest them, and then be able to jump to another dimension that they didn't belong in. So as, say if there was a higher species here, or someone that was here to help the planet, and then they slightly got it infected, their family would welcome them back, but then they would take back with them this, element, this virus, or, the goblin energy. And then they would, kind of start, they actually integrated some of the higher dimensions somehow. I know some people probably disagree with it, but that's what I saw. And they said that they were finding different ways to do this. And so now we have humanities looking at some of these high consuls and saying, oh, they're high consuls, they're from a higher dimension, they should know more than us, and yet they're not quite right, and they're wondering why. It's because they've been infected by some of these different elements that had jumped in and kind of attached and journeyed up into those spaces. And I know, like I said, I'm sure some people will disagree with me and say, well, how can they maintain the space? Well, somehow they learn to integrate, almost chameleon-like. They seem to integrate, and so it seems natural. So, I don't know. I don't know all the details of it, other than that I've been told this on a few different occasions, that's what happens. So the next part of it is that he's saying that humanity has been affected by this. So there are some people that you try very hard to help. They seem like no matter what you say to them, they're kind of set on doing things in a certain way that are contrary to everyone else. And he's saying that, maybe some of them are infested by this virus because their consciousness is not in the right place. And this virus then is keeping them there. They can't kind of see their way through it and open their eyes and awaken because this energy is there. So he suggested to use the essential oils, I think, of frankincense, myrrh, and coriander as a combination to help clear your field and maybe help those around you.
Because they say frankincense is, this is one of those very, very strong cleaners. And what they call it, saging yourself as well. Saging yourself literally does clean stuff that is hanging out in your you see, your aura is, if we were a planet, our atmosphere would be our aura, right? There's a layer of air and atmosphere and steam and water above our skin, like an atmosphere, and that's where things come in and hang out. And if you that's why, what's that? Well, smudging, is effective because it cleanses that stuff, and the frankincense is really good for that. So it's like these are pungent, potent, medicines, but they weren't just gifts for Jesus.
Right. That's usually associated with Jesus, but it's not necessarily, it's been around for a very long time. And
I actually have some frankincense, crystal frankincense and myrrh. They're both resins. So, they come as a kind of lump of orange stuff. It's interesting.
Yeah. I'm looking for, I'm trying to find the last Meetis.
But this reminds me of the TV series that was back in the mid to late 80s called Dark Skies. I don't know if anybody heard it or saw it. Did you see that one?
No.
Dark Skies. Fascinating, really fascinating. It was basically a slightly fictionalized version of how MJ12 was formed and how they co-opt people onto it. That in that group there was one person, the number 2 guy, always the number 2 guy, that was infested. And eventually he mutates it during the series and looks more and more ugly. But basically, he's infested with this alien squiddy type virus thing. It's not a virus; it's a little creature that I could go old.
Even in the movie Prometheus, right?
Yeah,
they had that. So maybe this thing is more common than we realize.
Yeah. So it's like it hides itself, and the thing that I was getting when reading Rhodan's, it's like we can't, you can't tell something that you can't tell. If you can't see it, if you can't perceive it, then you don't know if it's there, and then it might grow to be completely malevolent. Mm-hmm. This is a problem with our universe. It's mostly dark. We don't see things because it's mostly dark.
Yeah, but we're learning, and so this has happened before too. Because what I was informed about, I know Patty Broussard talks about the Aquilian War, the Elven and Aquilian War. And the Aquilians were these other beings that were from lived in the ocean somewhere in another planet and came over here, and they went after the Elven. And they attacked the Elven with a mutagenic and with a combination of other things. That's how they created the Jinn. So here again, were they using the same mutagenic? That sounds like it could be. And it's just something to think about.
So this is an interesting thing. The Jinn were mutated through the virus from the Elven.
Yes, the Elven, it may have been a combination of, what Patty says is the combination of the Jinn and the Pixie Fae, using the two genetics, because the Pixie Fae are of a hive mind, and the Jinn are not. I mean, the Elven are not. So you put the two together and it makes them a little wacky. So then you add the mutagenic to it.
This has got reptilian and no, this has got grey type signatures. This is a very it's the energy of it is not like overtly subtly aggressive like reptilian. It's more underhand and, playing the long game on it. Kind of grey type thing.
Yeah, kind of, well, it's a way of domination. So they didn't really want to wipe out the Elven, but they wanted to definitely subdue them and manipulate them. They started doing experiments on them. And so what happened was, I guess, I should have Patty talk about this sometime. She tells a great, explains it, and I understand it because I know that these things have gone on. The Pixie Fae then went after the Aquilans and did some damage. I guess these little, never underestimate a fairy, Yeah,
exactly. Especially one that's been modified, because that, it seems that a virus has, because it tries to dominate, it's got an aggressive tendency. And, we're doing our best to stop the universe being so aggressive. This is what humans are about. We're loving, we're not aggressive. It will transform the universe for the better. Honest.
Right.
I know a lot of people don't believe, or a lot of beings might not believe that, but, we do put a benefit, but the trouble is that we humans stop others playing their games. Because, it just stops. When we see it, we're like, that's wrong. Stop doing that. With, and I'm wondering also, is it possible to to unhybridize. Say you got all these beings that have been hybridized by all these different greys and reptilians and all this stuff. Is it possible to just kind of, to cleanse it out? Or are we stuck with everybody else's genes stuck to our DNA? You know, do I have to have that, like, you know, that wasp gene, you know?
I think just like anything, to further, write yourself into the script of the future, I think you have to genetically align with, other species, because, it's just like we've genetically, you know, we've connected ourselves to other races. And of course, you know, we are a different species already. So, I don't know if we can actually separate that out. Whatever is done is done. But the way it's been done is not correct. There have been some problems. And, you know, from what Rhodan said, there's some, you know, for a while we were talking a little bit about, you know, maybe some of the benevolent ones haven't been helping us for a reason. And it could be that some of them are actually staying away because of this mutagenic that's here. And maybe just clean that up a little bit, and we can get some others on board to help us and to stop some of this hybridization. And because it's not consensual, it's different if it was of consent. But to come in and abduct and take and then create all these things. I've heard some people, you know, they feel very, very endeared by the fact that they have this child that's, you know, usually gifted because they're a part of another species that's more evolved than us. But, you know, on the other hand, it's the whole trauma part of it as well. So it's a lot of mixed feelings, and it's without consent. So it creates a problem. We want to stop all of this, actually. But meanwhile, what do we do with the children that remain, that have already been hybridized?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because this has happened before, and they're called the Nephilim, and they became our ruling class. We don't want that happening again.
No, and I'm not sure if that will happen. But, you know, that's a good question for Rhodan, what to do. And I think, right now we're really contending over ourselves and the cabal right now. Other species have interfered, but some of them are being, you know, been moved out and other problems. And sometimes I think the bigger challenge is amongst ourselves. But there are illusions and, distortions of truth that come through, so that you may perceive something in one way and not realize that it's really another way. They're highly covert and hidden in their intentions. And so that's why, as we are opening up our chakras and opening up our third eye, we'll have more intuition to be able to discern what the truth is and what isn't. Like, people are looking at everything from their mind, and we need to get beyond the mind, start using our deeper intuition and be able to readily assess something and have the correct opinions of it, rather than a lot of guessing and relying on others to help make our decisions. So we should all be able to do this. So we stay away from the fluoride and all those things that harm our pineal gland, and we just keep on opening up our third eye, continue doing your meditations, and become stronger and self-empowered and more awakened, and you won't have any trouble making decisions. I mean, I can look at something, I can feel it, and right away I say yes or no. And so we have to get to that point. And some people are trying different methods as well, you know, whether it's a pendulum or something else to assist the process. But, you know, be practicing that. Become the master of your universe and empower yourself. But anyhow, so let's move on to Meetis, because we want to make sure we have plenty of time for.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see, I put the right one. There it is.
So.
Oh, wait a minute, I just want to mention that we had Jay Giles died this week.
Oh, did he? Oh, that's right.
Yeah, that's why I had the music up there, because we're going to listen to some Jay Giles music, and maybe it's a little rowdy for you guys, but Jay Giles actually lived in my hometown, Belmont, Massachusetts. And we loved that music as kids, and it was kind of fun and a little bit on the bluesy side. But he just passed, I think, was it Tuesday? I think it was Tuesday. So anyhow, I'd like to, we'll play some of his music on the top of the hour.
Yeah, as soon as I can find it again, where did I put it?
Did I put it in the...
I did download it. Yeah, there's the first one. And where did it open containing folder? And I think I've got too many windows open. Oh, there it is. Oh, it's the J Girls Band. Right, that's it. Right.
Yeah.
So that's up on the desktop. It's a long story. See, I record, I'm talking on one computer. Oh, right. I'm talking on one computer and I play on the other computer, so I have to transfer one to the other. There it is. So, let's do Meetis and then we'll see Mr. Guys. So.
Okay.
Hello, my love. It's so wonderful to see you. Are you smelling the roses yet? I can see you're in a good state of mind, very much in order and in control of your destiny. I wonder if things would have been different had you taken the other road.
What other road, Meetis? Do you mean in this lifetime?
Oh, of course not. I'm speaking of your other decision not to be on Earth at this time. I heard you had quite a difficult time making this decision to be here.
It was not my decision to be here at this time, and I'm sure you are aware of that.
Well, I might know a little bit about this topic.
Meetis, it was you who pushed me into this reality? I saw you. The man with the blonde curly hair and the long robe, posing as an angel or something. And there you are, lurking behind me until I could sense your presence. Soon after I felt myself floating into oblivion. Why in the world did you do that? I have a clear and distinct memory of this incident. I wasn't supposed to be here at this time, was I?
Oh, no need to have your knickers in a bunch. I did. Actually, in Britain we say knickers in a twist. It's interesting. So, anyway, meanwhile, back in character. No need to have your knickers in a bunch. I did what I needed to do to get you back on track. You've been wayward, you know. Come now, it's time to confess.
Wayward? How can I be wayward if I didn't choose to be here? Don't I have free will?
You were avoiding your check-in or judgment of your life. You were in the free zone where no rules abide.
How are you there then? Who chose my family, timeline, and location?
I did. You didn't have a choice in the matter. There. I've finally told you what I did. One must be the bearer of bad news.
Bearer of bad news? Now what? Are you calling me a rebel?
You know you're a rebel. You didn't step up to gate as you were requested. Instead, you tried to re-enter through a portal. Shame on you, Flower. You know you've had your share of troubles. I tried to save you from a big problem ahead, and you merely grow angry with me without allowing me to share the full story.
Very well, Meetis. But why do you always take matters into your own hands?
You don't realize the many influences involved in abiding by the guidelines and afterlife protocol. Yeah. This is what happened. You agreed to help that very dark man, the one in Germany. I will not say his name out loud. He is a notorious soul and one who causes great disruptions whenever he goes.
You mean a lifetime when I was a part of the Vril?
Yes, the man called Himmler should never be spoken on any land. He was the mind behind it all. An ancient one of contrary intent against source. His essence is no more. I warned you, Flower, you should be careful when they lure you by their design. Their symbology is similar to the good, but had intersected with the contrary. One mustn't be so contrary. There is that element of you that can get you into trouble. Look at me, for example. See what lessons I had to learn. It wasn't easy, I promise you.
So you're overseeing my incarnation here?
Yes, you can no longer be naive. You must learn and grow from this. Grow up, flower, and balance your essence more abundantly. We're all at different stages of growth, and one must be accountable for their actions. I told the elders I would watch over you while you tarry on this journey. It will be my responsibility if you fall again to the allurement of the Dark Ones. This is a time when things must be set right.
I still cannot believe you were the one who pushed me.
It was Himmler who pushed you into the portal when you were Sigrun.
I remember that part. He really hated me. He seemed so cold and harsh, always. But you, Meetis, I was so perplexed by who cast me into this incarnation. Your curly blonde hair confused me. I didn't recognize you at all.
You did recognize... You did recognize me?
Yeah.
You did recognize me. You forgot that we had a previous conversation. If you don't begrudge my efforts to help you, I will share further insights as to what we were discussing at the time. That is the reason why you were not worried about me standing behind you. This is not amusing to you at all. I know you enjoy my levity, but when all is said and done, you will see the wisdom in all of this in the end. Listen, we all have our work to do. Sometimes it can be tedious and heartbreaking. Sometimes it is jolly good fun. Let's seek out the balance, shall we? Here's a song for today. Tell Primus, virtue has many names. Seek what is your truth and bathe it in the sun of your heart. Right, hang on. I was just going to go and get the guitar. Right, okay.
So, yeah.
So, do you want to talk a little bit?
Yeah, this was, probably many years ago. I would say close to about 7 years ago, I had a vision of standing on a precipice and looking down into what it didn't look like a tunnel. It just sort of looked like this sort of vortex type of energy, and saw that I was being pushed in. But I remember feeling this person behind me with blonde curly hair and thinking, I didn't want to go. You know what I mean? I just didn't want to go there. And, and then you're just floating into oblivion and then you don't remember. And so I think he implied that I was trying to cheat the system, or probably more like the apprehension of going up to the gate and being accountable for what had happened. Because in that previous lifetime I had, with intent, thought I was doing the right thing, being connected to that lifetime, or it was asked to be a part of that lifetime involvement with the Vril Daman, and using my abilities to connect, which I did connect to Aldebaran as well as others did, and providing that information. But in many societies, when you're getting information from off-world, you can either do something good with that information, you can do something bad with that information. So in this case, there was something bad that was done with the information. Now, I don't believe I knew everything. I mean, I have glimpses and memories of it. But I do remember how I died, and I was pushed into a portal, similar to the way I was pushed into this lifetime. So, it was really strange, because I talked to someone else who I believe was another Vril member, and I didn't say anything to her, and I said, did you see how I died? And she said, yeah. She goes, you were pushed into a portal.
Oh wow, yeah.
And she saw it. And so, we remember. It's funny because, there's a few of us, and I've talked to a few different ones, of the original group, and they all have memories. Well, not all have memories, but some have memories of what had happened.
We should do a call one day. Bring you all together on a call one day.
Yeah. Yeah, if they're willing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, Berry 3. This one, Meetis. So it's
So that's what drifting, falling.
drifting and falling, and life is calling. You cannot evade the truth. Be now sorry, you are angry, sitting on the pinnacle of truth. I told you carefully, deep and darefully, sensitive to all of your wiles. You spoke in riddles, you sang with fiddles, kick the laws right out. What shall I do, dear? Plant or uproot, dear? Will you ever hear? Time does not wait for any portals when you must go. Time aligns, fiddle and fun must wait until you're done, until your truth has been won. We must tarry till it's done. La 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 la. Must tarry till it's done. Must tarry till it's done. Must tarry till it's all done. Oh, not bad.
Wow, wonderful.
That's usually the end of my finger. It's,
Yeah.
you what's the word? You compensate automatically. It's really strange. It's just.
You never know that your hand was hurt. You sounded beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, very 3-time today. The 1, 2, 3 thing. So, let's just.
J. Giles Band and Looking for Love.
Yeah.
And we will be back with Amy. Mike.
Go for it. Oh no, it's not unmuting. All right, that's just typical. Can we play it later?
Yeah, we can play it later. So why don't we just bring everyone in?
Yeah. Sorry about that, folks.
So anyhow, are we live?
We are live back on.
Yeah, live. All right, so we have Amy and Viking here. Hello, Amy. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Thanks for coming back again for our visit and trip to Aldebaran. We're going to have another discussion now. Now, Meetis revealed to me today that he's the one that pushed me into this lifetime. And I have a memory of it. So, and it's not surprising that it had to do with the Vril.
Yeah, I remember you saying about that. Yeah, it sounded just like you described it before.
Another piece of information. I talked to the one who was once Gudrun, and from what I heard, she was sent to Saturn prison for what she did.
Yeah.
So we all kind of got in trouble. I don't know. I don't remember what happened with you, Amy, but
well, when you had done a reading, I was actually put into a trip seat. And I had remembered seeing this trip seat before, but I saw it as an assignment in a remote viewing class, which was really weird. And I ended up in Wisconsin in a little office. And then I meditated on it, and I wrote somewhere in my journal the name of the company that was in charge of that transfer or that association. So that was interesting. And then I had died of cancer, like really shortly after that. So, yeah.
And your name in that that incarnation?
I think it's pronounced Heike.
Yeah.
Heike. Yeah. And I do remember I had a really vivid dream about being in a little coffee shop getting information. And I can really imagine how, I remember the setup of the coffee shop. And then after this transfer of information, I was going to another office where I had to speak with somebody at a typewriter. And I thought maybe I was going to pick up my payment or just transfer information to this person at a typewriter. But I felt strongly that it was set in Germany somewhere. So that could have been part of the work, in the coffee shop. And then maybe I was actually working in the coffee shop. And that was, a good employment for somebody.
Could have been a cover. There was a Vril diamond called Heike. You know that? Mm-hmm. That's known.
Yeah. And we figured out I was Sigrun, and I think, JP, you and I figured it out together. And then we looked it up later and found out that with more research on Sigrun, that Sigrun was the daughter of Rhodan, or Odin. So it makes sense. Yeah. We're all pretty much aligned.
Yep.
Maria Orsic, a lot of people have talked about Maria Orsic still being incarnated and connected to Supreme Rockefeller, the girlfriend of Supreme Rockefeller, and you can see that there's, if you overlay the actual facial structure, because the coloring's different. Her name is Sully, and her eyes are brown, and she has brown hair, but doesn't have the Maria's blue eyes and blonde hair. But if you overlay their faces, it's almost exactly the same facial structure. So some people believe that was either, or something else was done that genetically to create that. So there's another woman, someone was asking in the chat who was Gudrun. It's another woman that I met, and maybe one day we'll have a discussion and bring the whole group in if people are interested, and you can let me know in the chat room or let JP know, and then we'll actually try to put together a show where we can talk about what we remember, because some of the information is really fascinating. And of course, the wife of Hitler, Eva Braun, we know who that is. So it makes for a very, very interesting conversation. And if you're interested, all of us will just do sort of a roundtable and have a discussion about it.
I think it would be a most fascinating conversation. I just wonder who else might be interested in listening into that. So what's her name? Sully or Sally?
Sully.
Sully.
Yeah. And I'm going to have to get the link to show, but there is a particular link. And, Maria wasn't with us as much. I mean, she was seen in pictures connected to us, but always set aside. Almost as if she came from elsewhere. Maybe was not necessarily a human. Seemed to march to a different drum, had different privileges. She was able to get married. She had other privileges that we didn't have, and I felt very much in the dark regarding certain things. I was not privy to it. And clear memories of being in the presence of many of the notorious people that were involved. The inner circle. And
it's fascinating that it was Meetis who was talking about this, wasn't he? I also have to say that the tone of voice that came through reminded me very much of Alan Rickman when he played Metatron in Dogma. It's like powerful but very caring. There was a very interesting, a different feeling coming through from Meetis. It was really caring and really truly, leveling with you.
Yeah, he was. And it was really hard because when I was like, you gotta be kidding me. So you're the one that pushed me in. But now that I'm hearing his explanation, he says that I don't remember the earlier conversation, but that I trusted him, and then he had a purpose, actually kept me from getting into worse trouble by sending me back in to probably work through karma and whatever I needed to work through. So, well, it looks like we have some response here. That would be a great show. Let's see. There's, I'd like to have a night out with the real girls. That was from Paul from Newcastle.
Who wouldn't? Typical Paul. Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
All right, I want to say hi to
take them to Whitley Bay.
I don't know what that means, but
Whitley Bay is near Newcastle. It's the local beach to Newcastle.
Oh, okay.
It's very nice, but it's near to Newcastle, so it must be a great resort, because Newcastle is, well, what can I say? Paul, tell us about Newcastle. Don't let me put your town down. You put it down.
Yeah, it looks like Purple Street put that in there too.
Yeah, because Ches, she comes from England and knows Whitley Bay as well.
He said, I'll wear my Hugo Boss SS uniform.
Exactly.
Yeah.
See, this is the thing. So he was talking, and he said it wasn't Hitler that was the one whose name should not be spoken. Yeah,
it was Himmler.
Yeah. And
I was surprised to hear that too.
Yeah. It
sounds like he was kind of the brains behind it. We haven't brought in Viking yet. Hi, Viking.
Hey, brother.
How's it going? Doing okay. It's been interesting times these past few weeks, I must say.
Oh, go ahead.
You know what I mean? I'm experiencing here is what I'm calling a quantum time flux. It's like a hydraulics. If you know the nature of hydraulics, it's compressing some sort of mass into a smaller cylinder, which causes it to compress and to move faster. And so what I'm noticing is my timelines are absolutely, they're out of whack. Things are speeding up incredibly fast. What was a week is now a day. What was a month is now 3 days. I mean, I go from Sunday to Sunday, and it seems like it's only been hours. And what I'm attributing this to is hydraulics. Because what's happening is we're so diffused over multiple timelines due to our fractal essence and being, kind of like we were talking about with Rhodan. These viruses are causing us to stay in this fractal state of essence. We're not a total. We're not truly an authentic being where we are acting with our free will. We are subjugated to this viral artificial intelligence of mind control that we've been subjugated to, again, for 10,000 years. It's an old story. We all know it well. But what I'm finding is as you start to pull in, and now I'm realizing it's not focusing on healing. Healing should be a byproduct. As you start to let go and start to sublimate to your higher sense of understanding, as the Galactic says, Rhodan pointed out, if you're functioning through your truth, your love, and your virtues, I call it passion. They say come through your heart chakra. Start functioning, making elements of your status through your heart chakra. You start to then embody your higher essence and awareness of your true potential. Your skill crafts and skill set and skill art comes to life to where it actually is a matrix of your being. So what happens is as you start to focus on its higher tendencies or virtues or truths, then the lower drops away. It's really interesting. So healing is a byproduct. As you start to refocus your attention, as you disengage, as you start to disentangle from this horrific spin of mind control, you start to become more in this essential flow of life. What I'm noticing is these timelines then start to collapse. This element that you bought into once you've come to resolution, it disappears. It disappears. And then they start to get less and less. And as you start to drop these timelines, things compress and the hydraulics starts to happen and you get out of this time vortex starts to slip away and you get more and more in this, amplified residue of this non-time of life. It's interesting. I'm almost questioning time itself at this point. So it starts to actually, implode in on itself and these timelines come together and to where you start to actually, and this is brought up so many times and it's brought up today, smell the roses. You start to smell the roses. You don't take the rose for granted. You start to literally, your peripheral view of life starts to just cascade into your element of bliss and peace and solitude. So it's been interesting.
That's great, Viking. It's always great to hear your insight, and I like the way that you put it in layman's terms, and because it's really hard to wrap your head around the tangible aspect of what's actually happening, and use the mechanical terminology to reflect on how the timelines collapsing affects us. So that's a great analogy. I'd like to go over and maybe take a look at we didn't finish reading some of the information that came from Arasmus, who revealed to us that she was from Aldebaran. And at first we thought we were talking to someone from Sirius. And as I mentioned before, Brad Johnson confirmed that he knew who Arasmus was, and he was talking from the perspective of beings from Sirius A. So let's get into that. And I'm looking at, there was a 3-7. Did we read over the 3-7, Amy?
Yeah, I thought we did, but I have to grab that one if you're going back another one.
No, we'll do 3. I think we just we had 2 left. And that was 313.
Okay, the ones I have are 321 and 328.
Oh, I don't have the 328 one. I have the 321. So why don't we read the 321, and if you are able to put that in the Skype chat, then we can get that. So we can read 321, or it's March 21st, 2017. Do you want me
to put a tune on while you're doing that? I'll put the other J Gars on.
Okay, sure.
Okay.
We're back, and that was Jay Giles' band Freeze Frame, song Freeze Frame. But as I mentioned, just a little ode to Jay Giles. He was something that I listened to a long time ago. Oh, I still listen to the music on occasion, but it brings back my childhood. And he passed this past Tuesday. So I always do that. It's almost like we did that with many other stars that have passed. So Amy, we're back, and we're going to review what we did when we channeled on March 21st, 2017.
Yes.
And you're going to read the role of Arasmus.
Right. So if you go down to the second paragraph, and you
there's something here about Zolar, right?
Yeah, that's the 28th. Or no, actually this is
the
also
21st.
21st, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so we're.
Do you see where you said, "Oh, she's here"? After we had quite a class discussion.
Yep, she's here, and
then Arasmus comes through to you. We are one now. We are in your atmosphere. Closed gates and integrating into the American public. It's easier to integrate than in other societies. We walk carefully to not create alarm, removing objects, creatures, and other energies that should not be here on the planet. A matrix that needs to be recovered. We have the equipment to do so. We hope to do it less painfully, but had no other option. The next few months are going to be another shift. only if it will be less volatile. We are seeing there are 2 gates that are broken. We wanted to inquire if you had anything to do with this. And then, I think you came through, yes. Jessica.
No, it says not that we blame you.
We wouldn't blame you, right? Not that we would blame you, but those who would use them, the apprentices of the Zolar.
Who are the apprentices of the Zolar?
Arcadian usurpers. They are here to do business. What is this? Artificers. They are the artificers of magic and crafters of warranted Xylon septing. Right. That's a mouthful.
That's what we were like, what are they talking about? All right. And then I said, what is Xylon septing?
It is an ancient device that is used to bend time in frequencies to get encapsulated timelines. At one time, it was allowable to prevent disaster, to protect and ward off intrusions of non-agreeable species.
So you were saying that it's created with a specific device?
Correct.
Is that a device that has been in the hands of humanity?
No, never. There's never supposed to get in the hands of humanity. They are many times more damaging than CERN and change minuscule.
On a minuscule level, probably. I think.
Yeah, change on a minuscule level.
Why were the Acadians allowed to do Xylon septing on Earth or in other spaces?
Like any tech, you are only allowed to use a specific tech or advancement if you are able to wield it for positive means.
Can we trust the Acadians to use this device as we are already enduring difficulties?
The Arcadians have suggested that they assist with anomalies such as the Mandela effect and help with certain effects. Data crunching, Zytag washing, and magnetic pulses, styron kaleidoscopic events, and more.
Can you...
It's so weird. Make this up. You can't make this up.
No, I was...
My family thinks I'm crazy, but... I could never make this up. I'm too busy.
Can you explain Zytag washing and styron kaleidoscopic events?
Yes.
And then I think she says, so the kaleidoscopic effect is...
Yeah, okay, so this kaleidoscopic effect is like a cymatics plate that shifts the matter from one state to another, and it appears to change its pattern. And Zytag washing is related to the weather patterning. Although they have already occurred, there are multiple repercussions, an echoing effect that already exists from the regular construct. They, the stalagmites in the inner earth, assist in some of these processes, but are already overtaxed and are creating energies that are throwing off some of the wave flow of the natural chambers, like the breaking of tin within a compression chamber that could occur. One must take into account so many factors that humans haven't considered. Tone and sound could actually be conceivable because the Arcadians were the master of the tool and one of the only species to operate with those tools. You must trust them and assist them. They can engage in other regions, lunar cavities and Martian structures, and have technology to reset and restructure the planet. The Venusians have lost pieces from the planet. Did you want to jump in and comment on that last thought, Jessica?
No, just
we're moving
through.
Quickly. So we have to recreate shanks and corners that naturally fall into a smooth brush stroke of sound and wind. Okay, and then I guess they comment on personally. Do you want me to read that?
It's up to you. Yeah, it's a personal message.
Regarding Amy, she has been in a sense as an antenna to broadcast imagery, thoughts, and content against our permission, against the laws of humanity. She was violated goes into something in my past.
Yeah, personal. Yeah. because of their abilities. That doesn't make sense. Okay.
I guess it was about interference of purveyors of Aldebaran, right? Is that what she was saying?
Yeah.
Because of their abilities, they were trying to explore human entanglement. Those born within tribes. Okay. So she was saying, you both, Jessica and Amy, have been chosen to assist their agendas. Their agendas were aborted. They thought to disguise their original intent. Now they were successful in doing so. They have revealed through Amy some of the practices they have been doing on the planet, and there is not further evidence needed to prevent them of misutilization of humanity. We are shutting down, well, that's something they're going to shut down, like some kind of etheric.
Okay.
All right, and then
is there anything? Oh yeah. Is there anything else that you wanted to share at this time? And then she goes into something else personal.
She does talk about the restructuring of the grids and the gates. Should I read that part about the final message of the target? We are on target of the restructuring of grids, gates, portals, and stellar alignments. The Caspian Sea holds many secrets. Consider it well. Within the next 3 weeks, new information comes up that changes things once and for all. This transmission is now complete. So that was interesting about the Caspian Sea. I don't know if anyone noticed anything in the news regarding the Caspian Sea.
I think something did come up right around that time that a person shared with me.
So I wanted to just have you explain, Jessica, maybe to the audience, why it's important to how you use discernment when you're channeling, that it's not a psyop. And I came up with 2 reasons why I don't think it's a psyop, because I think that a psyop uses fear, and they use like a savior model, like they can save the situation. So those are 2 red flags that would kind of lead you into the direction of a psyop. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been doing this long enough where I can tell when they're trying to disguise or hide something, and I can pick it up because I have more than one sense that I'm utilizing. I'm not just seeing, I'm not just hearing. I'm doing both, and then I'm also using my feeling as to what's it feel like, how do I gauge this, does it feel like they're trying to deceive me. Also keep in mind that a lot of different ones may come to me and talk to me, but it doesn't necessarily mean I want to share their information with everyone, because it's a perspective that maybe isn't coming from, they're not really benevolent at the time, but they still exist. And so in this case, she literally stopped talking to us as soon as she realized that we realized that she was from Aldebaran, and wouldn't talk to us the rest of that evening. And then we came back again, and then she ended up sharing more, and then was trying to explain some technical things to us. And then we had actually one whole session where, Amy, we were typing things in, and then they just kind of, I don't know if because you got nervous too when we discovered that she was from Aldebaran. I didn't know if you accidentally deleted it somehow, or all that content just got erased from the computer. So, but it had all sorts of terminology in there and all sorts of things that kind of similar to this.
Yeah. She went through a list of all the materials, all this very exotic tech and components and maybe, materials like iridium, or not quite iridium, but boron might have been one of them. And so after I got to 700 words, I was like, I need to save this right now. And I saved it, and then I went back into it. And for some reason, shortly after, I lost my text. And it was very odd. So I was nervous, and I call that sometimes user error between keyboard and chair sometimes, when it's a human error. But also it was like at a critical juncture when we were realizing that she was, being more clear about having the Aldebaran connection. I think that's when that was. Do you recall that too, Jessica?
Yeah, absolutely. But we got all of this content, and then of course, since I mean, a lot of the terminology was foreign to us, similar to this strange Zytag washing or whatever that was. And here, these are my interpretations of what I was hearing too. So I'm not sure if they were very specific. But,
Yeah.
you know, I hear something like that and I check it and I check it again. And so, of course, they don't usually use language like we do. So they're trying to convey the information as much as possible. But
then also I wanted to add that another reason for the audience to consider this is that, you know, if you have transmissions from these beings, you know, it's good to put it out in the public domain if you also hear from Arasmus, because then, you know, it shares the information and the truth can be known, and, you know, nobody wants to be deceived. Everybody wants their truth. So that's an important part of it too.
Right. So, all right. So this is March 28th, 2017.
All right. Yep. So that's the one that we actually lost, but we got the tail end of it where we were talking about the lost portal from the AI that was disconnected. And she was explaining about the metal AI that was created in our reality, and it was affecting their gait and was attacking them. And some of their people were injured. So she went in to say that there were 2 weeks of time manipulation. The AI was blowing up the timeline, and it appeared to be atomic, like a ball of white light, particles, and the timeline was disappearing. Also, the interference was causing some soul essence to disappear. Whole civilizations disappeared because they created a neutralizing effect that wiped out the history on a molecular level. All right, do you want to read the next part, Jessica?
Yeah, I just want to fill in there, and this could be the AI was behind us losing this information, because what I saw was these beings that were they looked like they were cyborgs, and they were black and white uniforms, not black and blue, and they were going further into the timelines, and then they were creating these. They're creating these explosions within the timeline. It was creating a lapse or a darkness, and like someone said, well, maybe that's the time period where the planet goes into so many days of darkness. And I asked for if we located what the issue was, then we can ask to have the healing come in, so we don't have to experience that. But that was upsetting. I actually was watching it when she was showing me. This species had a universe that was made up of other things that was like a composite. They can be liquid. We're not sure if they were kind to their own people or malevolent or worked in groups or in war. We needed to get more data. And the two groups that we were channeling, some were from Aldebaran and others were these others were from a multiple alloys in metallic group 50,000 years ago. They had been sending this information to us. This is the AI, is that right? It's because you took the notes, so I'm
this was kind of after we were filling in, after we had the small trauma of losing all those 700 words. We were like, are we sure we lost it? And yeah, so this was just a recap of what they look like, the AI look like. Then Erasmus, do you want to go into the next part where Erasmus calls for Celeste?
Yeah, she wanted me to interpret the data, and I don't know if, so I was asking if they were hostile and malevolent, and if they work in a hive mind or independently, and she was assessing their group dynamics, created with alloys that were primordial, but they have a metallic way about them, but not manufactured like cyborgs today. And
made
then,
here. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so she was clear about saying made here. Cyborgs today made here, right?
Yeah. Here in our reality, as opposed to these were cyborgs that were made way back in time. And then she used the word borean and malleolite, and I don't know what Meliorite is.
No. And she had given a list of 5 or 6 types of materials like this. Elements. And we wrote these 2 down from memory from the lost transmission, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then she asked you, we are now asking you to be our communicator and propose treaties that comply with our galactic agreements with all species entering into our field.
If I'm able to cognizantly be aware that it is them, then I will gladly communicate on the behalf of the galaxy.
And then she says, so be it. And Celeste symbolically hands you a form, and she reaches out to present you with this. Mm-hmm. And then it transforms back into the sphere that is 12-sided, and it became very small and disappeared. Maybe you can describe that, because you saw this, how you saw it transform. The sphere.
Yeah, it just went, it was large, it just diminished into my hand, and then she closed a large metal door. I remember the door, I could hear it when she closed it. But it was like a garage door, it kind of slammed. But it felt like it was one of those thick doors that you have in a bank.
Like a vault, maybe.
Like a vault, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which kind of is like other times where she had closed at the end of a transmission. It would be like you said a suction cup, or like a suction of a vault door.
Yeah.
It was kind of symbolically closing off the communication.
Yeah, like a seal.
A seal.
The sealing of the door, and then, but it also had this very strong metallic sound when it closed.
And she was really moving quickly in her previous 700 words that we lost. And she would often say, what say you? when she asked Jessica for her response. And I thought that was really interesting and fast. She wanted to move quickly to get this data through, because she would say a long, sentence to a paragraph, and then she'd say, what say you? And then Jessica would respond, and then she would say her thing. So it was quite interesting to hear it in that kind of phraseology. What say you?
Yeah, she has a different structure. I mean, I'm used to speaking to, the usual ones that come through, but this has a completely different energy. And, very, very specific. I almost felt some anxiety, almost as if, she was feeling threatened. Their civilization was feeling threatened. And whatever else was going on there. But, like I said, this AI group, concerned me, because they were, causing some problems and actually breaking timelines, or destroying timelines, or creating gaps in timelines. So, and waiting at these, portals and causing some problems. So you got, a combination of a few different things happening. So, I don't know if this is interesting or helpful to people, but I found it very interesting, and it's another piece of the puzzle that helps us to understand different perspectives of different star systems and what they're seeing and what they're feeling, and, potentially give us insight of what's going on our planet right now, and what some of the influences are. So, anything else you want to say, Amy?
I just, the value of this, is to share, so that others who have information about this can come to you, Jessica, and put their input in. And it's really out there. I mean, we're at a meditation class, and then I suppose maybe it is common that beings try to get through to people who are gathering in meditation. And maybe there's, a good protocol that you would handle if you were doing that with your friends getting together for meditation. How you would decide with discernment and be safe about it, but also get information to the public domain when necessary, or when you thought necessary. So it's just all a very interesting way to look at this.
Very much so. Viking, do you have any thoughts on this?
Well, this is all very, multi-layered. What's interesting in the beginning when you were talking about this machine or device that actually can encapsulate various aspects of timelines, then delivered to with I guess at a delivery system. I was recently still when I visualized, for example, a friend of mine that is having a hard time, I kind of go into the emotional unresolved residue of that person, and I see energy. And I used to just send that energy to the transfer station. Remember the transfer station?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, they don't accept it unless it's encapsulated. So I recently started encapsulating it in this kind of clear bubble. And this, depending on what's in it, if it's energy or a creature or a being, it's flexible, like it'll flex if the thing is moving. So what I'm realizing is a lot of these timelines are just, for example, if we look at the Civil War and the Confederate flag and the energy of that timeline still exists in the Deep South. I mean, it literally exists. They have reenactments. They have the same kind of mentality, and it's all unresolved emotional residue that people are attached to. And that's just one that has a heritage. Well, let's bring one that's based on abuse of nature, or being restrictive or oppressive. These are all unresolved emotional attachments that we have that've been created in certain timelines that still have carryovers and overlays of who we are, that have a way of dictating our free will. It'll dictate, because we still believe that this aspect of us still exists. And so to be able to actually unravel these timelines, because we have what's called a hologram of existence, that when intermingled with other holograms, being your friends and family, create a reality. And they further overlay with other holograms throughout the world, culturally, politically, economically, that create kind of a global reality, which is all basically at the snap of a finger, which is multiple overlays of timelines, which are projected through our essence as holograms. In order to back away, and these all exist in time. These are all time fractals that create illusions and these finite sense of what is. And it's not necessarily truth, but they're elements of truth. They're just fractal. They're fragmented into many different essences of who we are. And they kind of float around, and they're like a river. I use the example of a log jam. We got all these log jams, on this river. No one's able to move forward. They're all entangled, and it's just a mess. It's a global mess. And so I'm realizing that be able to, again, as I said earlier, by focusing and putting attention, and actually what Rhodan was saying today, by not buying into this level of energy or frequency and raising your energy and frequency, which is clarifying your essence and understanding, which is key here, of our true sense of being. Wake up and smell the roses again. Being able to really understand that we're not predicated by these illusions, but we have the opportunity of creating through our passion and through our love and through our compassion of life, a new essential being, a new divinity, a new essence. Kind of like Easter. It's a resurrection of the soul, a resurrection of the mind. It's getting out of the mind and into our true spirit. So encapsulating these aspects and just sending them away to the transfer station to be audited, and just clearing these irregularities that no longer are attuned with who we are, that no longer functioning in a proper way, that we no longer are finding them useful, that they're just old ways of again, these attachments of timelines that need to be resolved. As you start to let go of them, then you start to resolve who you truly are. Anyway, it's been very easy. It's interesting how there's kind of some overlays here.
Yeah, Viking, I want to ask you too, because we did the transfer station on a few different occasions, and even on Ever Beyond JP show, and you discovered that you could send something to the transfer station, which I usually talk about what I see there, but you discovered that you can send something to there, and that's to help it shift. Was that the reason? Or what was, explain to me what your thinking was around it.
Well, when I send something, when I recognize a pattern or an old energy, which is a residue, it's actually a timeline. I mean, any kind of hurt will have a reminiscence, which is creating the way you are acting or making a decision is unresolved. And so what I'll do is I'll notice that it has an energy. It actually creates an energy. It creates a life form, because you give anything attention, it has life. It has an aspect of life that influences who you are and your life around you. And that could actually be, could actually influence a lineage. It can influence a culture. It can influence a country. So I'll basically sit down with I'll imagine a friend of mine that's suffering, and I'll just imagine some kind of, I'll intuit the arena of which this energy is being generated. It's usually an unresolved emotional response, pain and suffering or abuse of some kind, or oppression or guilt. This is whatever it is. I'll just imagine it. And the energy then makes itself available to my conscious awareness. And it's usually dark, it's black, it'll be amoebic in shape, or sometimes it'll be like a creature, but I'll immediately encapsulate it in this bubble. And then with my hands, I'll just grab it and I'll just send it to the transfer station. And then I imagine the transfer station, and then there's always this guy, he's like, he looks like Lurch. He's like 9 feet tall, and he's wearing white, and he's saying, "Oh no, not you again!" And he catches it, and there's like these receptacles behind him, kind of like these air chutes, right? And he'll just throw it in the right one. There's like depositories, and so that's what I've been doing with certain energies.
The Lurch was from the Addams Family. For those, that was a TV show in the 1970s, 60s.
Late 60s, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, yeah, that's a good idea. And I was just thinking, little black things sounded like these, goblins that I was talking about earlier.
Some of them are goblins, yes.
Make sure that we're not infesting the transfer station. But, it sounds like a good idea. We can take some of those thought forms and other things that need to go there, and maybe even take ourselves there if we feel like we have to shift something. Maybe a soul fragment or something of that nature, and send it to that transfer station. So it's interesting because there's probably other possibilities and things that I hadn't thought of. And I'm glad when I hear that people are, kind of identifying with a space and then realizing that there's other ways to utilize that space. So that's wonderful. We're coming down to the end of the show, and anyone have any last thoughts? Amy?
I thought it was interesting the way Viking described that, looking at energy. So people who don't have quite that visualization, they can develop that. And so it's always good to learn from people who meditate a lot how they do it. And you might pick up little by little. Maybe, after you meditate for a while, these things start to make sense a little bit, but play around with it. Try to clear your traumas, and you'll feel so much lighter. You really will. And, I've cleared some traumas. I like Jessica's method where you identify the emotion and go back in time where that bothered you the most, clear it, and make room for new abundance. And then you'll feel lighter and move on to the next adventure, right?
Yes, perfect. Wonderful.
I have a comment on what Amy was saying. I find the most important element is trust what you're seeing, because a lot of times if you're seeing it, but you're not trusting it, and eventually it does get weak and it gets atrophied. So in order to re-engage yourself in your ability to understand or to focus or to become sensitive, I like to call ourselves sensitives. get sensitive to your particular arena of abilities, you have to start trusting what you're seeing. Because it's coming to you. And, phone's ringing, it's got to pick it up and validate the fact that, and trust that the information is true. Or why would it be coming to you? Why would you be seeing it if it wasn't true? You really need to start trusting your instincts and trusting what you are seeing and psychically seeing and hearing.
Mm-hmm. Jessica, it's time to go.
It's time to go.
Been a brilliant show. Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you, JP, and I hope you heal well. And thanks for joining us. You did a wonderful job with the guitar, and as usual, very gifted person that you are. Love doing the show with you.
Thank you. All right.
Yeah. Thanks, Viking. Thanks, Amy. And we will see you back next week. Have a great week. And
it flashes by so quickly.
It does. It does. Be at peace, love, harmony. See you soon.
Bye now.
We came from the future by way of past. I bought my ticket for the 15th century. We started moving through a whole